can you please introduce yourself, spelling your name afterwards?
Yep, my name's Alejandra Mayorga, Alejandramayorga.
Are you from Omaha?
I am originally from Omaha.
Where did you grow up in Omaha?
I grew up in South Omaha.
How did your family come to live in Omaha?
My father immigrated in the 1980s from Mexico. He came on a work permit, and he later brought my mom and my 5 siblings.
Can you tell me about your first time hearing music?
My first time hearing music, that's a good question. I think I've been hearing music since I was in my mom's womb. My family is we're a very happy family, and when we celebrate things, it always has to involve some sort of music.
How involved was music in your family's life?
Music, my grandma actually, she was known to sing to children back in her village in Mexico. So I feel like I got my music inspiration from my grandmother.
And is that how you first became involved in music?
When I actually became involved in music, I was a first grader at a Catholic school, and they made us take violin classes. So that is when I first started.
Okay. What instruments can you play?
I can play violin, I can play guitar, I play the ukulele, and I play a little bit of the accordion.
How was music first involved in your neighborhood?
In my neighborhood? Well, I live in South Omaha, so music is a very big part of our identity, I feel. Everywhere you go, even in a small restaurant, in a small shop, there's music. There has to be some sort of authentic music playing in the background.
How is music special to you?
Music is special to me because it's my way of relieving stress and coping. Whenever I feel stressed or frustrated, I play instruments or just listen and airplay a song and escape whatever I feel.
Who has been the biggest supporter of your music?
The biggest supporter of music for me has been my mom.
And can you tell us why she was so supportive of your music?
Yeah, I remember when I was first learning how to play violin in school, the first couple of years we would borrow a violin. Once I was in 3rd grade, we had to purchase one. And I remember I told my dad, and he was a little hesitant, and my mom, she gathered extra money so that we could buy myself a violin.
How does it feel to perform in a live audience?
Performing in a live audience is sometimes nerve-wracking, but it's one of the most undescribable sensations I feel that you could have for many reasons. You entertain people, you're doing what you love, and you are just having such a good time doing it.
Is there a particular story you can tell about a memorable performance you've had?
Yeah, so there was one time we were playing at a festival in Lincoln, Nebraska, and something that I like to do a lot when I perform is I like to get close to our audience and interact with them. There was a man in a wheelchair. I'm not sure what was going on with his health, but he couldn't really move, and he couldn't speak. And we were singing this particular song. It was like a love song. It was me and another girl. And I went up to him and I sang to him and I grabbed his hand and he started crying. After that, the man's mother came up to us and she started crying and she thanked us because she said that he felt very special because we gave him that attention.
Can you describe the music scene in Omaha?
The music scene in Omaha. In South Omaha or just Omaha in general?
In either way, any way you want to tell this story.
Yeah, because we are focusing on South Omaha just because we're focusing on Mexican American music, and that's where a lot of the Latino population is. But because sometimes you might not have so much knowledge about if you've performed in other parts of Omaha. I'm not sure. So whatever works for you.
Yeah, the music scene in Omaha, is actually something that I like, because even though Omaha's a fairly sized city, there are a lot of, like, I want to say undercover artists that perform in little restaurants or bars or whatever. But a lot of my friends, actually, I have a lot of musician friends, so I like to always be supportive and go to West Omaha and watch my friend perform while I'm having dinner, or go to downtown and watch my other friend perform while I'm at the park with my dog. So I think Omaha is doing a really good job of keeping, like, young talent, especially with events like Jazz on the Green, the festival or the concert we just had for 4th of July at Memorial Park, things like that, yeah.
What musicians inspire you?
Musicians that inspire me are a lot of the old school Mexican musicians, like Javier Solis, Selena, she's one of my favorites. She was very influential, of course, so yeah.
What are some important music venues in Omaha and in South Omaha?
Important music venues.
So for, like, South Omaha, we've learned about some of the older ones.
Tampico,
Guacamaya.
Oh, Guacamaya.
Tropicana. Howard's.
In South Omaha, yeah. So I actually started playing at Howard's when I was about 12 or 13 years old. That was, like, my debut with the mariachi group that I was in when I was younger. And it was, like, a weekly thing. So we had people coming in there, like, just because there was mariachi music on Fridays. They wouldn't even eat. They would just go listen to the music. Guacamaya is actually another very influential restaurant, just because it's a Mexican restaurant, but you see people of all sorts go there and eat. I've seen the mayor go eat there. I've seen the governor go eat there. And I've seen just, other normal people like me and my parents that go eat there and enjoy our music. I want to say another big and influential, like, it's not a venue, but the Cinco de Mayo Festival is one of the biggest. If you perform at the Cinco de Mayo Festival, it's one of the biggest things that you could do here in South Omaha.
Thank you. What are women's roles in the Mexican-American music scene? How are they treated and involved?
That's a good question. I feel that women in Mexican-American music scene, even though there are quite a few artists that could be named out and pinpointed, it's still sort of like we are a minority. A lot of recognition goes to the men or the males that perform. When you think of mariachi specifically, you mostly think of men, in their attire. In Mexican music, though, I feel like women do have a big part of it, because a lot of songs are written in a way like a love. So it's either from, like, the male to a female or the female to a male. So there always has to be that sort of, like, connection between a guy and a girl within the music.
Is there anything that you feel like, as a Mexican-American woman, that you guys could help change the way they're seen?
What do you mean, like, change?
So do you mean more how, are you asking, like, what are some ways that you could continue
the traditions of, and so they're not seen as minorities, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so how can we have women more involved?
More involved? I think one of the biggest ways that women can be more involved and not be seen like such a minority, I guess, and I've seen it, like, I've experienced it hands-on, where we will go play somewhere or perform somewhere, and men will there's, like, particular songs that they want a male to sing because it's best suited for a male. I feel like, just kind of on the surface level, one of the most influential things you could do is, standing up for those kind of comments or requests, and, saying, like, hey, I can still perform this song, or I can still sing this song, or even just be charge of a group itself. Most of the time it's men who are in charge of the group. It could be also a female that's coordinating and in charge of an ensemble.
Have you, where are you at?
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, after you get through with 16, I have some follow-up questions I don't want to forget. So you can.
Have you seen music from the Mexican American community change over time?
I have a lot, actually. I see a lot more of mixtures of other type of music coming into the Mexican music also. For example, we have started to even perform like English music in mariachi style. That's something that before it would never really happen. That's one of the biggest changes. Also, like attire has changed and it's evolved. Yeah.
And then I'm going to ask you this question,
Yeah.
but you can look at her when you answer it, obviously. One thing that we have heard from everyone that we've interviewed is that, you might have music for yourself, but sometimes when you're a performer, you have to kind of play to who you're performing to, I guess.
Yeah.
Can you, or you were going to ask that? Good. Can you explain what your take on that is, or how that has been for you when you have to play maybe to other people?
Yeah, so it's kind of like marketing, if you want to think about it. I want to like rephrase the question in my answer, so let me think.
Yep.
A way that we have to adjust to our audience when we're performing, one of the most noticeable ways that we do it is if we have like solely Spanish-speaking audience, we won't perform certain like English songs, right? Another thing is, depending on what part of Mexico the audience is from, surprisingly, they have different requests. So if they're from northern Mexico, they're going to ask for certain songs that represent their states. If they're from southern Mexico, they're going to ask for other songs that represent their type of music, like sones. Other people prefer like ballads or slow songs, depending on where they're from. It just kind of depends. So it goes a little bit more than just singing and performing. It's also like kind of getting to know who you're playing for so that you can satisfy them when you do perform.
And you just spoke to how you started doing some songs in English. Do you think that's a positive thing? Which I could see how it could be a positive thing, but then a part of me, I'm not going to say that makes me sad, but part of me, I like the traditionalness of it. I like Spanish, you know what I mean? Because it is so cultural to someone who's not, you know what I mean? Sometimes you see culture not die, but start to go down with some of our newer generations.
Right,
probably,
yeah.
Younger, but yeah.
Yeah, and that makes sense. So I think, and that's a very controversial topic. We've had people where we have been singing English music and they will ask us, why are you singing that? Or we don't agree with you singing English music if you are a traditional mariachi band. I feel that, like I said, you have to look at your audience, and you're not going to please everybody, but if you do please the majority, then I feel like your job is done. 1, 2, if you enjoy what you're doing. As far as a tradition fading or going down, I'm very grateful, and kind of on a personal level, the band that I play with, we have a mixture of everything. So it's a lot of young musicians, but we also have older that are very, very traditional. So we like to mix, not mix, but have a combination of both. So yeah, we're always, at the end of the day, being a band that performs for people, we try to, if our audience doesn't want English music at their party, or we won't do it. But we do like to include all types, English and Spanish also.
Sweet. This is kind of jumping back, but can you just tell us a little bit about Marcos Mora and maybe who he was or still is to you, or how you got your start with him? Just because he's someone who we interviewed, so just helps kind of tie in.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
See my questions?
Sorry, I should let you go first.
Yeah, so Marcos Mora, I know that he started Las Estrellitas, and I actually began playing with Las Estrellitas when I was 12, many years ago. He is known, he's very influential in South Omaha in the aspect like music. He started the group. His father, I believe, was the one who originated that. He brought a lot of us together. So even Deanna and I played together when I was younger. They were like my second family growing up because we would spend every weekend together performing at parties, going out of town. We traveled as far as like Missouri, 6 hours away. So yeah, now I look back and I'm grateful because if it wasn't for all the people that he tied me to, I feel like I would not have continued with music.
How many bands or groups have you been in total?
In total, I have been in 2 bands, specifically Las Estrellitas, which converted into Mariachi Luna y Sol. Basically, Las Estrellitas was like the beginners, and then Mariachi Luna y Sol was once you were like advanced, you would perform at parties and festivals and big stages. In 2010, a friend and I decided to merge on our own and make our own band, and this band is called Mariachi Patria Juvenil. So I've been in that band since 2010.
And then was this the same band, Las Cecilias?
It's a different band, yeah.
Okay, so that's a different one too?
Yeah. So Las Cecilias is an all-girls band, and they merged from Mariachi Luna y Sol too. So Mariachi Luna y Sol kind of split up, and then Las Cecilias was created, and we were created.
Okay, so you were not in Las Cecilias?
No, I was not.
Okay.
Okay.
Can you finish and restate this sentence? To me, music is.
You gave her another hard question.
To me, music is love, passion, and freedom.
That's a good answer.
Yeah.
Freedom was.
Yeah.
Number 18. How does music connect the Mexican American community?
Music connects the Mexican American community in my eyes because even though, you know, people are so different in many ways, even just in Mexico and in the country, you know, northern, southern, listening to music and being here in the United States specifically, I feel like now, when you hear a very influential song that brings out that Mexican culture, I feel like people just like bond together and identify themselves with that as one, rather than from different parts of Mexico, if that makes sense.
And do you like that way that, that feeling, do you like how it connects between Mexico and USA? Is it a big part of you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was born in America, I was born in the United States, but I feel, you know, my parents growing up, they very much like instilled in me that Mexican culture. And I actually grew up in Mexico. So to me, Mexico is like my blood. You know, Mexican music is something that like defines me, I feel. So yeah, I love that feeling of playing somewhere and playing El Son de la Negra, which is like one of the most traditional mariachi songs, and having people turn their eyes and say, oh my gosh, I know that song. Yeah.
Is there anything else you think we should know besides the question that we're going to come back to is how does music shape culture?
And if you don't have anything to speak to it, that's
Yeah.
okay
Yeah.
too.
I just feel that, kind of touching base back on how you said that you love that traditionalness. I think it's very important for us to keep that alive as much as we can. Now it's easier for us to, with all technology that we have, it's easier for us to mix and alter music styles and genres. But nothing is as authentic as, you know, playing your instrument and actually letting that just resonate from within rather than, I don't know, I think even people who sometimes lose even the language of Spanish, you can tell when they sing. So to me, it's just something I do want to state is it's important to keep that tradition and that genuine tradition alive, not just halfway, if that makes sense. I think music shapes culture, and I want to, my family, I feel my family is a very good representation of a traditional Mexican family. So music shapes culture in the aspect that if there's no music, then is it even real? When we celebrate, there has to be music. When we cry more passionately to a particular song. When we are stressed, we may have something like a song that identifies that stress. So music, in my eyes, shapes culture in a way that if music didn't exist, I don't think the feelings would be as intense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that was
Okay.
a
You are
really good
making perfect
answer.
sense all the
Okay.
way through.
Okay, good.
Another thing that I always like to ask is if you, me and you are both still young, but we're older and we've lived life a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any advice for young people like these guys who are about to be freshmen? It could be about anything. It could be about school. It could be about friends. It could be about music. But I always just think that's a good question for them to hear any advice from a real person who lives in your community.
From a real person who lives in your community and who has experienced quite a few things, I would say just, going into high school is a different chapter. People sometimes are like, it's not a big deal, but it really is because those 4 years fly by, but they also shape who you will become after, or who you will evolve into. So I would say, don't lose yourself. Always put yourself first in the aspect of your identity. Don't do things to please other people because at the end of the day, you are you. You come first. If you are musically inclined, do not lose that interest because once you're older and you have lost that, it's harder to get back. Or even sports, the same thing. If you're inclined into sports, don't lose that interest, Whatever your passion is, just let that drive you. Don't let other people influence that passion that you have for a particular hobby or thing that you like to do. Yeah.
Wait, I do have one question right before.
Yep.
You said you got your violin when you were 14. How did you end up getting your violin?
So this one actually was a gift, but was it this one that you're asking? Which
Yeah,
one?
this one, yeah.
Yeah, this was a gift from my uncle in Mexico. He gave me this for my birthday when I was turning 14. I don't know exactly where he bought it, but this is like my backup. So as you can see, it's dirty. But yeah, this one was a present.
So you said that you were born in Omaha, but then you grew up in Mexico?
I did, yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I was born in Omaha and I left to Mexico when I was really young. I was like about 1 or 2. Then I came back when I was like first grade, so 6 or 7. And then after that, every year, my dad, he worked in landscaping. So during the winter, of course, there was no work for him. I remember I would mostly spend my birthdays in Mexico and my birthdays around Thanksgiving. So we would leave right before Thanksgiving and we would come back until about March. So I would go to school here for a couple months and then I would go to Mexico in school. I would go to school in Mexico and then I would come back. And that was like my whole life, every year until I was a junior in high school. So I have a little bit of like, I knew what school was here, but I was also really involved in school in Mexico. And I would stay in Zacatecas, Mexico. I don't know if you guys have heard.
State.
Zacatecas.
And what
So,
city?
it's called
Or-
Fresnillo.
Is it a smaller community?
Well, the city itself is big. My parents are from a village that's like an hour away. So yeah, it's a really small, there's about, I don't know, not even 100 houses in the village.
What area of Mexico is that?
That's northern Mexico.
Northern. Okay. I've been to Jalisco. I've been to Guadalajara.
Okay.
It's a big city,
It's about like 4 or 5 hours from there.
Yeah, because it's pretty central.
How did switching between a school in the U.S. and Mexico affect you?
That's a good question. At first, I didn't really notice the effect that it had on me, like learning and adapting. I feel that has made me very adjustable. Now I can, bend this way or that way, but it also instilled both cultures in me a lot. So I'm really grateful for that.
Maybe you could just talk about your outfit, and then we can do maybe watch you perform once.
Okay, yeah. So this is a typical mariachi suit for a woman. Of course, it's a skirt. The most typical one is black. That's like el traje de gala, which is like the formal one. All the mariachis, they have a black suit. That's it. If you are a little bit more fancy or anything, you get a different colored suit. Every suit has the botonadura on the side. Some even have like the designs right here additionally, and some have just the designs and no botonadura. This is the belt, which is called a cinto piteado. And you can kind of style it however you want. You can get this one or one that has white, whatever color. This is the moño, and girls either wear like a flower or a big bow in their hair. The traje usually comes with a vest and a jacket, but it's really hot outside, so I didn't wear one today. Yeah. Thanks.
Really pretty.
Thank you.
Great.
Awesome. Okay.